Hello and welcome back from the networking break. This is Tom Bechtold, of course, your host from Secure World Digital. Up next, we're going to be talking about Symbiosis Unleashed, navigating AI integration in healthcare, exploring integration, security, and ethical challenges. We're going to be talking to my good friend, Kimberly KJ Haywood, out of our Dallas area for Secure World. If you're one of the folks that visits us at the Dallas event, she is just a wonderful addition to our advisory council down there and does a lot of stuff with AI and is just, frankly, a wonderful friend of the family. So welcome, KJ. I wanted to just point out real quick, the content research here is exclusively developed by Nomad Cyber Concepts, and want to turn things over to Kimberly. Welcome. It's wonderful to have you back on. And you've got some cool stuff, a little scary probably, but please share with us. I'm going to regroup with you at the end with a couple of questions of my own.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Tom. It's a pleasure to be back. So I'm going to start with just a story. First, there is this woman, and we'll go over through the introduction after the story. There's a woman who was born in the United States in the 1960s. She, like many infants, were born with a hole in her heart, except her hole did not close during her physiological development as a child going into adulthood. So at about around, let's say, 7 years old, this child began experiencing blackouts, like passing out. And no one really understood what was going on. So they chalked it up as, diagnosed it as hypochondria. They diagnosed it as migraines. They weren't really sure. The doctors weren't quite sure. So they pretty much didn't treat the condition that she was experiencing. Years later, 30 to 40 years later, she began to experience some more pronounced symptoms. And those symptoms were additional blackouts. I think it was additional blackouts as well as paralysis in her body and different regions of her body. So this young lady, 45 years later into her life, had a major stroke. And from that major stroke, they identified that there was something neurologically imbalanced in her body. And they decided that they would check and see if maybe it was heart related. At this time, now we're moving into the early 2000s. Now we're in the 2000s here. So we're going to go over the history of AI. And at that point, obviously, medicine has changed and shifted. So the diagnosis was a little bit more pronounced because medicine and the technology in healthcare was a lot more robust. So fast forward, they decided that they would treat her based upon that one stroke. And then shortly after, she began to have multiple strokes shortly after that. They knew that there was something wrong, but this woman in particular was very health conscious, worked out, exercised on a regular basis, ate healthy, had a healthy lifestyle. So they were just completely perplexed. They recommended that she see a neurologist. The neurologist continued to provide her health care. Then they identified some health-related experiences based on going back to her background. And this is all human, right, related, as you're following the story. So presently, this woman in particular, they diagnosed her with a condition with a hole in her heart, the hole that she was born with when she was born in the 60s. So for some odd reason, they were perplexed as to how did this woman survive her life, 45 plus years later, with a hole in her heart. But there were pre-existing health conditions before then. No real true medical history that provided an algorithm that would have provided that neurologist or cardiologist who identified the hole would have identified that information using some level of artificial intelligence, some level of technology that would give them the full history. So that woman is me. My name is KJ Haywood. And today I'm just going to cover an overview of healthcare, the historical context, the importance of AI in modern healthcare, and an AI integration, a holistic approach, the security challenges and solutions, and we're going to we're going to talk about the creative, effective guardrails, privacy considerations, the impact of poor data quality, ethical implications of AI in healthcare, and the future trends and innovations in healthcare. So going back to the avatar, I'm sure you're wondering, I actually was that patient, and that patient, I received robotic open heart surgery last year in 2023, which led me to do more research around the subject matter of artificial intelligence. I was intrigued by the performance of the robot. I was intrigued by the industry in healthcare. And so that led me into researching and writing on the subject of artificial intelligence. And it just all kind of came together around the same time that AI, ChatGPT, had hit the market by storm, hit the world by storm. So let's fast forward. So we're going to cover the introduction today, and that's the overview in healthcare, historical context, the importance of AI in modern healthcare, AI integration. We're going to talk about the holistic approach, security challenges and solutions, creating effective safeguards, and big proponent on that, and privacy concerns, of course, the impact of poor quality data quality, and ethical implications of AI in healthcare. As well as we're going to kind of cover really briefly about some future trends from my lens, from my research, and some innovations that are forthcoming in the healthcare industry to look out for. So there's a quote that I have that our President Joe Biden mentioned when he was signing the bill. Actually a bill, but it's more of a guardrail of a bill. So he basically stated that without safeguards of AI can put your privacy in greater risk. That's why I've called for new protections on your personal data with this executive order. My administration is going to help develop and lead leading edge technology to make those protections as strong as possible. Now that's the US. There are other protections that we'll cover and we'll go over in terms of what's happening with other regulations that are international and that have been pushed out. We'll cover that today. So next slide, we're going to cover the historical overview of the whole concept of what the history of AI has been over the last several decades, how that's really impacted the healthcare industry, which has been tremendous. So starting with 1942 through 1995, there's been some huge strides between that particular era with healthcare and technology. The story that I gave you in reference to my condition and why the diagnoses were misdiagnosed could have been through a number of different reasons of why it was misdiagnosed. Making the decisions for doctors and decision making and aiding in their decision making is really critical and critical moving forward for healthcare industry professionals, especially as they experience a high level of shortage in the healthcare industry. And so this is where the paper was, right? This is prior to HIPAA, HIPAA, yes. So it was prior to that time period where privacy wasn't as much of a consideration. You know, cybersecurity was not involved. Medical devices being a part of the infrastructure were not in place. However, I want to point out that technology has always been a part of healthcare in some facet. So we move forward to 2020, and I'm hoping that everyone can see my slide there. And if you can't, I'll read it. It just basically says a revolutionary tool for the automated process of ChatGPT. So how they're using automated tools such as ChatGPT. So artificial intelligence has, as I shared, always played a significant and impactful role in healthcare. Again, even prior to 1942, this slide only gives you that time gap where it has sparked debates, meaning technology has sparked debates around the potential replacement of doctors or nurses as it relates to artificial intelligence, robots in particular. And rather than just leaning in on seeing artificial intelligent tools as themselves, there are some concerns in the healthcare industry, not only with the practitioners, but also with patients as it relates to privacy. But AI supports physicians in making better decisions. It has, and we have plenty of data to support that. It can at some point substitute task, but not the human element, so to speak. So specific areas like imaging, radiology, we'll go tap into that a little bit further, has also aided. So let me share briefly the distinctions between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. That's really pivotal as you look at how, as a security practitioner, if I am working in healthcare, to understand the distinction between that and share that information, right, with your board, share that information with your teams. Artificial intelligence, and you can look all of this up, machines that mimics the human behavior. Machine learning, however, learns from the data that's automatically a part of creating a task, right? And the performance of that measurement of that task. That's the machine learning process. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning, which happens to it's focused on algorithms, and they're inspired primarily by neural networks. And that neural network we have in our brains. A lot of professionals are in this field talking about neural networks. Again, that is how our brain operates from the concept of neural networks. Generative AI is a subset of deep learning. And deep learning is a subset of machine learning that happens to use algorithms, right? And then generative AI, it's basically creating content from existing data, and uses kind of advanced algorithms to create outputs that you prompt it to write or prompt it to create. So those are the kind of distinctions between there's artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, generative AI. And those generative AI are the tools. So let's move forward. And let's dive into the importance of AI in modern healthcare. So if you've joined this particular session, then you're presently astute to understanding that artificial intelligence is fundamentally has transformed healthcare by enhancing diagnostic accuracies and streamlining patients and processes and care processes. This technology is accelerating at the pace of medical research and drug development, which has enabled faster enhancements as enhancements on treatments, particularly on treatments, particularly in the realm of cybersecurity. Very vast, robust data management and infrastructures are really critical to safeguarding healthcare systems. As cybersecurity professionals, your role is critical in overseeing AI systems, to protect the sensitive healthcare data and maintain, most importantly, maintain the integrity of the digital healthcare environments, of the ecosystems in your organizations. So this slide in particular is important. I want to highlight a couple of things. So to the right, you'll notice that there is a patient care under there. This is the AI healthcare system from that lens. But you'll also notice at the very top, I know if you can't read it, it really talks about how AI contributes to more accurate diagnosis by providing more accurate free results and intelligent symptom analysis, which of course we talked about can lead to early detection of diseases. AI tools like radiology, MRIs, CTs can assist in interpretation of medical imaging. So the interpretation of those images can be a lot more defined, more accurate to support doctors in their diagnoses. So here in the right-hand corner, it talks about error-free diagnosis results, intelligent symptoms analysis, predictive early diagnosis, radiology assistance. We're talking about radiology. That's just one of many images in the healthcare field. And then the diagnoses versus the medical imaging. And that's part of the decision-making process. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the innovation in research and development in drugs, right? And that's here in this portion of the slide. The data mining and analytics, the drug discovery, drug design, the pandemic detections. Many of you've probably heard about that, all of us, I should say, and the vaccine development and the rapid movement to create the vaccine development. Artificial intelligence was very much involved in that process. And so the innovation from that perspective, it has accelerated the pace of research by analyzing vast amounts of data, hence why they were able to produce a vaccine at such a rapid rate. And it produced those large amounts of data, right? Large language models, these huge amounts of data to identify and test, right? For drug discovery and design. It also does play a really critical role in detecting the pandemic, and it did, in detecting pandemics at an early state, not just COVID, but others throughout the world. And it speeds up the entire process. So all of that means that now you're able to, because of that process and because how AI played a role in that, artificial intelligence, machine learning processes, how that played a role in allowing us to have our lives back and be able to do the things that we were accustomed to doing on a daily basis, although it's shifted in a lot of ways in different industries, some for the better, some not for the better. But it has enabled us to get back to some normalcy of our lifestyles in our societies throughout the world. Personalization and automation in the process, that also involves enabling and deployment of surgical robots. And that's what I was speaking about earlier in my personal experience of that. And the precision and operational supports personalized medicine. Not every patient is designed for every type of treatment, right? So there is a process. In my case, having, being selected as a robotic patient required me to have certain attributes that they were looking for so that I would be a successful outcome of that procedure. So there's no difference when you're parsing through data and you're assessing that. You're looking for attributes that are going to give you the best possible outcomes so that those physicians and nurses and medical care professionals can make the best decisions possible for your care. So security practitioners, Our responsibility is to ensure the integrity and the security of the data across all of these applications that are in hospital organizations, healthcare organizations, and or if you're working for an organization that's in manufacturing and healthcare. Our role is to ensure that we're protecting the privacy, that we're assuring that we are maintaining robust defenses against cyber threats that could compromise AI systems in healthcare. So we're going to move forward and start talking a little bit about preventive healthcare intervention, data and structure, cybersecurity oversight, and AI governance. I won't dive too much into this, but these are highlights that I want to share with you that are added to what the importance is in modern healthcare. Predictive healthcare intervention, we discussed that, data and its infrastructure, and the cybersecurity oversights in healthcare systems. We'll dive a lot more into that and a little bit later down. So let's move forward. A holistic approach, AI and its holistic approach, there are benefits of AI decision-making tools. There are definitions of holistic approach in AI integrations. And the case study, I have a case study that I'll be happy to share with you post our presentation today so that you can at least take a look at that case studies, and there will be others that you can also research as well. But you want to look at case studies and what's the successful implementation, particularly as a security practitioners, right? What are the best use cases for integrating artificial intelligence in your systems or in your ecosystems from a security practitioner perspective? And what does that look like? And making certain that you're adhering to best practices. So we're going to move forward. And we're going to talk a little bit more. Let's see, did I do the holistic approach? I want to make sure I covered that. Yes, I did. Okay. So we're going to talk about some security solutions here. I want my pen to be clear. So some of the security solutions that we can cover today is I want to make some what our pain point is, right? Because there are several areas of the common healthcare security threats that we all know about, but I'm going to throw a little anecdote in there. So this is approximately 1 million new malware threats that appear every day in healthcare organizations, each with a very new digital footprint, or it's just a fingerprint footprint, and I would say footprint. The evolution is truly outpacing traditional security designs, and many of you as practitioners that have worked in healthcare know this all too well. Hence, the image that I've identified using Copilot and ChatGPT. I'm not a big fan of ChatGPT, but using a Copilot imaging tool, this is near and dear to my heart. As security practitioners, we are constantly bombarded with and inundated with more threats on a almost second by second case than we can keep up with, that we can humanly keep up with. And we're supposed to put on our lenses, right? We're supposed to be the individuals, plural or individual, depending upon the size of your organization, that is supposed to identify these threats and resolve the threats or prevent the threats. And it is literally becoming humanly impossible to do that, even with larger teams. So putting your lens on, this is the concept here. I'll draw a pin here and that way here. So these cute, cool little glasses that my security professional has on is really to just illustrate how much work we have, and we have to put on these extra pair of lenses, or expected to put on this extra pair of lenses to see all these compromises in organizations. So from the perspective of the 1 million malware threats that occur every day, there's a cost associated with that. And presently it could be, let's see, we're in 2024. So presently, it could be roughly over $380 million on an annual basis easily. And this is across many healthcare organizations that are experiencing this, particularly U.S. hospital systems. They're losing probably approximately $5 million per day just due to data breaches alone. So what we want to do is we want to identify some strategies to enhance data security practitioners, right? So what we need, it would be ideal. I know many of you would say, I need more money, I need more budgets, I need more qualified, applicants. And until we're able to get that, and I know that we've always been the stepchild in many organizations, what we can do is work smarter and not harder. Identify new malware threats and machine learning, right? If you know that you have machine learnings in your organizations, identify what that means, assess the organization that is providing that, meaning doing your due diligence from a third-party perspective, identify in response to breaches using behavior modeling. So you can also use AI, and I'm sure many of you have heard this concept, use AI to fight AI attacks. Use AI to fight AI attacks, right? If we're in battle and one battle, our enemies have knives and we have guns, then it's not a fair fight, right? Or vice versa. If we have knives and they have guns, it's not a fair fight. It's the same concept in our threat world, our cyber threat world, and cyber, our warfare with cyber. We need to use the same tools that are being used against us for malicious reasons. Predict medical devices from attack. Again, that's going back to using the tools that we have at our disposal to do predictions and prediction analysis. So from that perspective, that's one concept that can be used for sure. We can also talk about, let's see, empowering AI automation. That will also help as well in terms of segmenting traffic that will automatically isolate sensitive data. That's based on very specific security protocols, of course, right? But it does help ensure that compromised devices can't be spread. It can't be spread for infection over the entire healthcare network system. So again, this is thinking smarter. And that's identifying response to breaches using behavioral modeling. Predict medical devices from attack. Presently, there are about 3.7 million connected medical devices, and that is an underestimate in the US because there are so many medical devices that even they're connected, but they may be out of commission, that haven't been properly inventoried, meaning that they're still a part of the network, they're still on the network, but they might be just temporarily disabled, and or they're out, they're end of life, so they are not supported. So they're not technically supported by the original manufacturer. So that 3.7 million is an underestimate in truth. So this figure is about 10 to 15 devices if we take that 3.5 million, right, per bed on the average. So that's the average American hospital. Defibrillators, pacemakers, insulin pumps, for example, or other medical devices that are a huge part of the ecosystem of the medical devices that are connected to the network. They're a huge benefit for patients, but they're also connected to the network. So of course, then they're exposed. So, but according to recent research, many are also vulnerable to attacks, meaning the devices that are part of the network. That's a given, right? But hundreds of thousands of these personal devices, those IoTs that are in the healthcare organizations, Those are also devices sometimes that are also not discoverable, or they identify as much as they can, right? Again, it's that inventory, the inventory concept that is a little challenging, right? Taking that inventory. But more than 3% currently use outdated operating systems. And if you are working in this field and you are a security professional, this is nothing new to you. This is not new news to you. Many of the operating systems that are in healthcare, as with education, they're outdated. They're working with outdated systems, and or like I mentioned, end of life cycles, so they're not supported by the original manufacturer. Including implants and larger equipment such as scanners and MRI machines, that includes them as well. But like I mentioned, by typically incorporating third-party suppliers who provide those systems, right? Their responsibility, our responsibility as security professionals, is to ensure that they're upholding their responsibility as well, right? So let's fast forward. The extended human resources and addresses the security shortages. That's another strategy that could be incorporated. Systems reliability and safety. That's about AI systems can take kind of one more complex critical function in healthcare, such as diagnoses, processes, and patient management. And security professionals should focus on the integrity and the reliability of the systems. There is a need to measure and prevent failures, of course, right, due to cyber attacks that could result in incorrect diagnosis and treatment plans. So that's really important. So ensuring that AI systems are safe from any type of manipulation and their outputs, and most important, their outputs, right? We want them to maintain that accuracy, and that's really important. It's really critical. The third bullet talks about examples of AI implications with robust cyber security frameworks. So I want to just quickly give you some concepts of what I mean by AI application security frameworks. That would be medical imaging and analysis diagnosis. Those are AI applications. And what robust kind of security frameworks, what that looks like. That includes access control, data encryption, adversarial attacks, right? Regular audits, and some patient consent. So your framework should include those and probably others. That's just a snapshot, but that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about security frameworks to support AI applications that are in these systems. Drug discovery and personalized medicine. There's a security framework that is around that, because that's another application. That's just another example. That might include, in that instance, privacy preservation, secure collaboration, of course, and some serious ethical considerations. Again, this is the framework, and I'm just giving you just a quick snapshot of that. So let's move forward here, and let's cover the effective guardrails around what are AI guardrails? What does that exactly mean? Well, what I mean is data quality checks, explainability, and that basically means that AI systems should provide explanations for its decisions. If it's flagged as a tumor, you have to justify why, right? So it has to have the ability to explain. So creating guardrails around understanding what that data quality check is, being able to explain and justify the outcome, the human oversight and aspect of that. That's, again, ensuring that doctors and nurses and technicians and healthcare professionals have the ability to make very strong and more accurate decision making. as it relates to patient care, patient treatment. Regular audits are important. Periodic assessments that verify the AI system as well should be performed. That's no different than any other tools and or applications that are in your system or in your environments. No difference. So that's kind of what I mean by AI guardrails. Another area of importance is the guardrails to safeguard AI, right? It's essential for us to safeguard the realm of AI, artificial intelligence, to prevent the systems from causing harm and ensuring their operations within ethical and legal boundaries. That's really, really important. These safeguards are akin to safety barriers on highways, guiding all of us towards a beneficial outcomes. It's not just transportation. It's not just healthcare. It's manufacturers, right? It's those organizations that are also that we as hospital organizations, we as security professionals, our fiduciary responsibility, of course, would be to ensure that whole ecosystem of creating some guardrails. That could be also including collaborations, right? Collaborations within your organizations if you're working in healthcare, collaborating within organizations if you're working in manufacturing and you're designing and developing healthcare tools, whatever that may mean. The efficacy of that is really critical. So human review, segue into that. What does that mean? It's very important from a human review, human oversight, not only just in the development of machine learning models, not only in the development of how AI will be used and automated in the healthcare system, but ensuring that there is some oversight even in the development aspect of that, right? So there's this continuous feedback loop between the manufacturer, you as a security professional, as well as the doctors and nurses, right? So there's this constant feedback loop. And I would strongly recommend for some organizations, if you have the capacity to create an AI committee that talks a lot about and gives you a better lens and oversight of how are we ensuring that there is full human oversight as we are bringing in new artificial intelligent tools and automating our processes using machine learning. So what are we doing within those organizations? So an example of some of the guardrails that I would throw out for you is AI in medical diagnosis, AI-driven medication recommendations. And the case study, definitely, I would suggest that you take a look at some case studies, do your research, and find out if there are case studies around heart, bacteria infections, any type of, healthcare concerns. What are those case studies that are out there? Because there's plenty of them. Remember, technology has been a part of healthcare for many, many decades. So what does that mean? And you want to take a look at where's my organization now, and look at if the systems lack proper guardrails. What do we need? What do we need to do internally to ensure that our customer, the patient, right, is receiving the proper information that they need to receive for, again, appropriate health care or recommendations for any type of treatment. So let's move forward, talk about privacy and considerations. Really, really important point. So there's a real startling statistic around healthcare records. It's about 40 times more than credit card data on the black market. Some of you may be aware of that. With hackers increasingly targeting healthcare organizations, it's becoming extremely lucrative for them. So it really is no surprise to you as cybersecurity professionals that healthcare, education, particularly healthcare, has always been viewed as the low-hanging fruit for cyber attacks and for malicious use, right? The data. That's no surprise to many of you. Artificial intelligence and machine learning in this instance are already helping some hospitals, right, all over the world to ease their administration burdens and improve patient and health outcomes. Now, AI is being used in cybersecurity to augment health efforts and to ensure the safety of the patient data. Of course, AI in healthcare and security still faces a lot of hurdles. We know that as cybersecurity professionals. With all these malicious AI applications I've mentioned in previous writings and presentations, which is ChatGPT fraud or GPT fraud, GPT, I think it was GPT fraud, and it was another one I can't think off the top of my head. And if you guys want to put that in the chat to share with your other colleagues, that would be great. But there are other GPT malicious tools out there that are being used specifically to target that healthcare data security, because that's where the money is on the black market. Data privacy and security, the integration of the integrity of the AI in healthcare has led to the collection and utilization of vast amounts of data. That is described in the introduction, and that increases the demand of robust cybersecurity to measure and protect the sensitive patient information from breaches and on any type of unauthorized access. So again, we as cybersecurity professionals, we have to consider the implications of handling and the storage of the data. No surprise, not new news. I see that you can't see that. Thank you. So the data privacy issues in the healthcare we covered, the compliance with laws and GDPR, I'll cover that in a moment, and the techniques to ensure patient data privacy. So I'll cover the techniques in a few moments, but let's go to the compliance of laws and GDPR and HIPAA. So as it relates to HIPAA, there's HIPAA high tech, of course, that most organizations have already used since the 1990s, which is HIPAA high trust. And we have also used in the healthcare industry a high trust, which is a robust tool for third-party organizations to be assessed based upon their security, ecosystem. Do you have the right attributes within your organizations to ensure that if we share our patient data, that you have the tools, that you are implementing the policies and the procedures within your organizations to protect our patient data. So high trust has been around for at least a decade now, I believe. We're in 2024, and many huge organizations are using that again as an assessment tool for third-party organizations who will be doing business with healthcare organizations. A really good measure, some say that it's a little bit too much, and if you've gone through a high trust audit, I'm sure you know the painstaking process as a third-party vendor and what that takes. But from their lens, it's an important assessment to identify any gaps, weaknesses within your organization if you are a third party. So from their lens, it makes sense, right? They want to be 100% as thorough as possible. The techniques to ensure, of course, there's GDPR. The techniques to ensure patient and privacy data, I would say adapt threats and continuous learning. That might be a cookie cutter, but it's no difference. You still want to continue to do that when you're assessing your AI systems, particularly those employing machine learning algorithms. You want to that continuously evolve. These algorithms continually evolve based on new data and new scenarios, right? It's the data that it's going to be that's going to be ingested in that. The adaptability, while beneficial for improving healthcare services, also opens up new vulnerabilities as the system's behavior may change. So you have to monitor that change, monitor and be prepared for that influx of change as the data updates, as you receive new data, as situations change, particularly around patient care. Information is going to fluctuate, of course. Cybersecurity strategies could involve, and also think about it, could be parallel with anticipating how those changes will occur and anticipating how the AI behavior might exploit that, right? By malicious actors. That's you putting on your lens, right? This is you having the armor that you need to employ so that you can protect your health, your organization who is providing patient services from malicious attacks, and adopting those protective measures to guard against any type of evolving threats would be an asset, right? That is something that you as a security practitioner, you as a leader, will ensure that that's what your team is attempting to do. Again, employing the AI systems, using them to your benefit, not trying to necessarily reinvent the wheel. We have had a lot of decades to practice dealing with malicious attempts. I know AI might be a little bit daunting and scary, but we need, as security professionals, again, we need to think smarter and not work as hard and employ what we have and the tools that we have at our disposal. So let's move forward. We're going to talk about the 22, this slide here, which is one of my favorite slides. I'm hoping that you can see it very well. But this slide just is a basically segue into what we talked about, which is privacy and data, and how patients view this whole AI. And in 2022, there's a study that revealed that half in the US believe that AI will improve their outcomes. And I made a glitch. That's supposed to be not improve their outcomes. They don't believe that AI is going to be really beneficial to them. And there are various factors to that. There are biases within healthcare data that has got, tens and millions of records of biases data that has been ingested in some of these machine learning models. That is, again, something that has to be parsed out. That's a part of the cleansing of the data. So it's very important that we as security professionals, that we hold our data scientists, that we hold those third parties, whomever is developing and employing or implementing those systems, that we do our due diligence to ensure that the data is properly cleansed, right? Because otherwise, we're basically creating a full cycle of, biases. The biases that the decisions of the doctors, the nurses, technicians have made in the past. The goal here is to reduce the biases, not to add on to the biases. So regardless if you're from a low economic family, or if you're a family of a disproportionate means, from ethnicity to access to good, healthy foods, to the communities, to the environments that people live in, we want to give people a fair share and a fair opportunity to receive, equal access, regardless of where you live in the country. And so there is some fear. There's some serious fear. So we want to try to mitigate that fear as much as possible. Let's go down to the next slide. Impact of poor data quality. That leads me to this slide here. Impact of poor data quality. We're going to cover the risk associated, the flaws in data machine learned model, and some of it I've already talked about, but I want to just kind of quickly summarize that maintaining quality data is really of the utmost importance as business runs on data, all of us. especially now in this digital era. Maintaining the overall quality of the data in the migration system is more difficult than mitigating the data itself. I'm going to repeat that. Maintaining the overall quality of the data migration systems is more difficult than migrating the data itself. So in fact, assuring that the quality data starts way before the actual migration process starts, the earlier it begins, the minimum your risk is of failure. There are different types of risk, and there are different methods of that risk, right? The data migration quality assurance method can be delivered in two groups. One, the project management based techniques, is that's formally applied for verification techniques, and it allows the right path, and the second one helps the other one prepare for the migration process. So from that perspective, and if I miss something, just put it in the chat, but because I want to, for the sake of time, but the poor data quality is really critical in and can identify and can create some severe consequences that can lead to death. So the data mining is really critical for organizations to do if they're going to bring machine learning tools, robotic services, whatever that may be in healthcare organizations. It's really critical that they are that they're vetted properly and that they're following processes, right? The entire machine learning process. There is a development life cycle in that process. Are they following that? And what security aspects are they integrating in that process? And before they bring a new MRI machine, before they bring a robot in a hospital organization, what does that mean, and what are they doing from the back end? Questions, questions, questions. So the case examples where poor quality lead to problematic outcomes, I would encourage you to please do your research on that. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to share any of those case studies, but please research. You'll have access to this slide deck. The measures to improve qualitative integrity. Again, those are questions that I want you as security practitioners to use as your arsenal to ask really solid questions to those who are part of the machine learning process and development. Ethical dilemmas and posed by. So we're going to go to the next slide. Ethical implications of healthcare, the ethical dilemmas posed by AI and the technologies. Machine learning, let me show you real quick. Ethical dilemmas posed by AI technologies, discussing biases and transparency. These are things you want to talk about in your groups, things you want to talk about with your management, with your teams, with your governance. If you're working in healthcare organizations, ethical guidelines and frameworks, you want to definitely have conversations around that. What are they doing? So machine learning does construct data analytical algorithms that does extract features from data. And it inputs machine learning algorithms into patient traits. And I'm just an example. And sometimes medical outcomes of interest. So a patient's trait, for example, commonly includes baseline data such as age, gender, the history of that person's disease, and any disease-specific data related to that, such as the diagnostic, the imaging, and the EP tests, the physical examinations, and so on. So machine learning constructs that data algorithm, right, using all of that data. And that's where I was speaking about earlier, is that biases can be not necessarily, it could be twofold. The bias of the human who's, creating the machine learning model, the biases of the data prior to the data scientists using that data to create a machine learning model. So biases can be on more than one layer. So it's really, again, what's important, very important, is data cleansing and retesting and testing and testing and minimizing the biases as much as possible. So there's a principle called clustering component analysis, and it's called CPA. If you are a data scientist, you're familiar with this. If you've built machine learning models, this is just a methodology. If you built machine learning models before, because there are two major supervised and unsupervised data. And there's unsupervised learning methods, and clustering groups subject with similar traits into clusters. Again, if there's a bias in that data, it's going to cluster a certain segment of a population of individuals that are diagnosed based upon biased data, right? And it's going to cluster them in. Cleansing that data prior to that process is really, really important. So again, it's the outcome you want to get, right? So clustering algorithms can be a huge asset. It's a good methodology to use for the output. And it also helps maximize and similarity. It also creates the ability for doctors and nurses to see, okay, this cluster of patients have these particular attributes, and meaning what we were talking about earlier, their diagnosis, their history, and this is how we would typically provide this service for this patient. However, they fall outside the circle. And how this patient, this is the cluster of our patients, but this particular patient, patient A, is uniquely different from the cluster in cluster B. So how do we treat this particular patient with this unique condition, right? So the algorithm will be able to give that healthcare professional some great recommendations and help them have better informed decisions on prognosis and diagnosis of that patient. So there is, again, AI, ML tool, they're tools, and they're there to help the healthcare organizations. So I'm going to wrap up with predictions in AI and advancements in healthcare. And what are the future trends in innovation? What does that look like? Transforming healthcare and AI and the impact of the workforce services, remote healthcare services, telehealth, we're already experiencing that. 5G empowered emergency responses, when there have been organizations that have not been able to provide services due to unexpected weather conditions, and what that has done to help ensure that babies are still born, that people still can continue operational procedures, doctors can continue operational procedures. It doesn't stop the flow of that healthcare. So 5G powered emergency responses, an example. VR glasses are being used now to treat patients with PTSD. VR glasses are also being used for treatments of people who have other mental health challenges. And it's also helping from the perspective of ambulances. They're using that even, they're testing this out now, right? Allowing ambulance technicians to use VR glasses. And again, this is all being tested. AI in clinical decision support. I definitely see it with note taking. It's definitely going to be an influx of more professionals using GPT tools, generative AI tools to help them with note taking, more defined note taking, more concise note taking, and identifying their key areas of what they came out of with. And even if that's not just literally, even if they're listening. So it'll help them with that, so their time can be spent more on treating the patient rather than taking the notes and filing them and going through the process. So I think it'll help a great deal. Early detection, I think, definitely is coming, and the efficiency, AI streamlining the decision-making process for physicians and healthcare practitioners is definitely on the rise, and I know that that's coming in the near future. There may be others that you can throw out in the chat that you may have, you can share with me and other colleagues, but that is a wrap for me. So let me go over my key points really quickly. We talked about total security. We talked about making strong rules around safety and AI. Oops, you can't see that. So let me grab that. There you go. All right. So we talked about total security is key. Strong rules make AI safe. Privacy can't be overlooked. We talk about ethics. They can't be ignored. Good data means good AI. Strengthening governance and protections, and no need to reinvent the wheel. No need to invent the wheel. Think smarter, not, think smarter, because again, as security practitioners, I know that many of you are understaffed or under budget in some respect. And I know as a security professional, it is extremely challenging. So again, use artificial intelligence as your tool. And I'm going to stop there. I thank you very much for your time today. And if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat for me. And here is my information that I'm going to share real quick.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Great job. Wonderful presentation for us. Lots of stuff to really wrap our heads around. So really appreciate that. We're kind of out of time for the questions I was going to ask. But if you wouldn't mind, finish typing out some answers there for the audience. One question, and this is more of a personal nature. You had a robot operate on you. How did you wrap your head around being okay with that? That's the only question I have.
As a security professional, I asked them lots of questions about, I did my homework to determine what type of robot it was, how often it had been used, how long had it been used, and the staff that had been trained on it, how much experience they had. So I was one of those individuals that did a lot of homework on, it was called the Da Vinci, and anyone can Google it. It's the Da Vinci. It is a very well-designed tool, but the key with any tool is having an incredible surgical staff that knows what they're doing to perform the procedure, because there were, I believe they counted about 5 or 6 robots simultaneously inside my body doing different things. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're living proof that AI can save lives, though. I mean, that's
yes, it certainly
something
can.
to be said there. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, KJ. I'm glad they talked you into it. I mean, obviously, it worked. So I'm glad it all panned out, and you're probably honestly a case study moving forward for other people, right, to help them. So I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much, and thank you for your presentation. Real quick, I'm going to share just the resources that KJ had as she was building this presentation. Any of these things, you guys can grab the PDF. It should be in the little resource area down there. Check this stuff out. Do your homework, because this is it's going to be a game changer for a lot of us, especially as you're trying to safeguard your organization. So that being said, thank you all for joining us for this very enlightening session. That concludes our time with KJ, and we'll see you at the next round of sessions.
All right. Thanks.